Have you ever thought that something as small and innocent as a handful of nuts could be silently disrupting your sleep or inflaming your joints after 60? Most of us grew up believing that nuts, almonds, walnuts, cashews, were nature's perfect snack. Full of healthy fats, great for the heart, packed with protein. But here's a truth many seniors are just now discovering. Not all nuts are helpful after a certain age, especially if eaten at night. This is Elderly Reflections, where we dive deep into elderly wisdom, senior health, and life lessons from the elderly. In this video, I'll uncover 5 common nuts that seem healthy but may be sabotaging your rest and mobility after 60. Backed by science and real senior experiences from the US and Europe, we'll explore why these healthy choices might be doing more harm than good, and how small changes can restore your peace and sleep. And stay with me, because by the end, you'll understand how to protect your nights, ease your joints, and still enjoy the right kinds of nuts safely. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you never miss an inspiring story, health insight, or senior motivation from Elderly Reflections. There's one particular nut that almost no one suspects, tiny, green, and praised as a superfood by dietitians. But for many seniors after 60, it's quietly turning peaceful nights into restless ones. Pistachios have been celebrated for years as a heart-healthy, fiber-rich snack full of antioxidants and healthy fats. For many seniors in the US and Europe, they've become part of a daily routine, sprinkled on salads, blended into smoothies, or eaten by the handful in the evening while reading or watching television. They seem like a harmless habit. But what if I told you that this tiny green nut, often praised in health magazines and senior wellness blogs, could be the very reason you're not sleeping through the night? At Elderly Reflections, we've heard countless stories of seniors unknowingly sabotaging their rest with healthy habits, and pistachios are one of the most surprising culprits. Here's why. While pistachios do contain melatonin, a hormone that promotes sleep, they also contain protein and a moderate amount of fat, both of which require digestion. For someone in their 30s, this isn't a problem. But after 60, digestion slows, and your body becomes far more sensitive to late-night stimulation, even from food. The energy required to digest pistachios late in the evening can lead to subtle but consistent sleep disturbances, especially for those already dealing with lighter, fragmented sleep due to age-related changes in melatonin production. Then there's the dopamine connection. Pistachios also contain vitamin B6, which supports dopamine and serotonin production, normally a good thing, but not when you're trying to quiet the brain and fall asleep. This was exactly what happened to Linda Barrett, a 68-year-old widow living in Northern California. Every night after dinner, she'd prepare a cup of chamomile tea and a small bowl of lightly salted pistachios. It was my moment of peace, she recalled. But soon, Linda began waking up every night around 3 a.m., restless and alert. I thought maybe it was grief, or hormones, or just aging. I never suspected the food. It was her daughter, a clinical dietitian, who made the connection. You're stimulating your body with protein, salt, and fats right before sleep, she explained. Linda stopped the pistachios, replaced them with a few slices of banana and warm milk, and within a week, her sleep stabilized. I never would have thought something so small could make such a difference, she said, and she's not alone. At Elderly Reflections, this kind of overlooked cause comes up time and time again. The lesson here isn't that pistachios are bad. They're not. In fact, they're excellent for senior health when eaten earlier in the day. But timing is everything. Enjoy pistachios as a midday snack when their protein and healthy fats can fuel your energy, support brain function, and enhance mood. Avoid them in the evening, when your body is beginning to shift into repair and rest mode. It's a small change, but for many seniors, it's the difference between another restless night and waking up feeling truly rested. That's elderly wisdom in action, learning that not all health advice is universal, and sometimes what's good for your neighbor isn't right for your 70-year-old body. Now let's move to a different kind of problem. This time not in your sleep, but in your knees, fingers, and morning routines. Another beloved nut, creamy and rich, might be silently fueling the stiffness in your joints. Cashews are one of those nuts that feel almost indulgent, smooth, creamy, and easy to blend into sauces, dips, and even milk alternatives. They've become a cornerstone of many modern, healthy diets, particularly among seniors who've reduced their red meat or dairy intake and are looking for plant-based alternatives. But here's the problem. For people over 60, especially those dealing with joint stiffness, early arthritis, or chronic inflammation, cashews may quietly be making things worse. First, cashews are high in omega-6 fatty acids. While omega-6 is essential in small amounts, it becomes inflammatory when it overwhelms the body's omega-3 intake, a very common issue in Western diets. For many seniors, the ratio is deeply imbalanced, creating a chronic, low-grade inflammation that settles in the joints, especially overnight. And there's more. Cashews also contain oxalates, natural compounds that, in susceptible individuals, can build up in tissues and joints, increasing pain and stiffness. If you're someone who already wakes up with sore knees, swollen fingers, or stiff hips, it's worth looking closely at your diet, and cashews may be an unexpected contributor. Consider Dorothy Klein, an 80-year-old retired schoolteacher from a small town in Michigan. For years, she prided herself on her clean diet: whole grains, lots of vegetables, and plenty of nuts. In fact, she had switched to cashew milk years ago, used cashew butter instead of peanut butter, and frequently snacked on raw cashews throughout the day. But during the winter of her 79th year, she noticed something had changed. Her fingers were swollen in the morning, her knees ached more than usual, and she struggled to kneel in her garden, a daily ritual she cherished. "I just thought, well, I'm getting old," she said. But when her niece, a holistic nutritionist visiting from New York, took a look at her pantry, she raised an eyebrow. "You're overdoing the cashews," she said. "They're not bad, but they're not neutral either, especially not in that amount." At her niece's suggestion, Dorothy removed cashews entirely from her diet for 1 month, replacing them with flaxseed, chia, and omega-3 rich walnuts in moderation. By the 3rd week, her fingers had depuffed. By the 5th, her knees stopped aching when she got out of bed. "I honestly couldn't believe it. It felt like I had rewound the clock 5 years," Dorothy shared. What's the lesson here for our audience at Elderly Reflections? It's not that cashews are evil. They're still nutritious, and in moderation, they have their place. But for seniors, whose bodies are more reactive to subtle dietary imbalances, portion and frequency matter greatly. If you're using cashew products in multiple meals day after day, your joints may be absorbing the cost. The good news? You don't need to eliminate cashews forever. Instead, try rotating them. Add in anti-inflammatory ingredients like turmeric, ginger, wild-caught fish, and leafy greens. Pair your meals with movement, gentle stretching, walking after eating, and above all, listen to your body. That stiffness might not just be age, it could be your body quietly asking for something different. That's the kind of life lesson from the elderly we hear so often. The realization that wellness after 60 is less about trends and more about tuning in. A small shift in your plate can restore comfort to your mornings and vitality to your days. For some, the effects are not as immediate as a sleepless night or a swollen knee. Sometimes they build slowly, quietly, until one day you realize that something as routine as a morning meal leaves you exhausted. And in those moments, you don't feel like yourself anymore. You feel older than your years. That's what happened to George Callahan, and it all started with walnuts. George was 73, a retired engineer from upstate New York who took his health seriously. He read every article on brain health, followed senior nutrition blogs, and made sure his pantry was stocked with what he believed were smart choices. One of those was walnuts, rich in plant-based omega-3s, good for memory, recommended by his cardiologist, and featured in nearly every top 10 foods for seniors list. He added them to his oatmeal, crusted them on salmon, and even snacked on them before bed with a piece of fruit. But over time, something changed. George began to feel heavy and sluggish after meals, not tired in a relaxed post-lunch way, but drained, foggy, as if his energy had been stolen. "I'd sit on the couch after breakfast and just stare at the wall," he said. That wasn't me. At first, he blamed aging, then the weather, then maybe stress, but the fatigue persisted. It wasn't until his daughter, a registered dietitian, asked him to write down every meal, every snack, and how he felt afterward that the pattern revealed itself. Every time walnuts were part of the meal, especially when eaten raw, he crashed. "It shocked me," he admitted. "I thought walnuts were the best thing I was doing for myself." But that's where elderly wisdom and experience often challenge surface-level trends. The truth is, walnuts are healthy, but they're also dense, oily, and difficult to digest, especially for older adults whose digestive enzymes are no longer as active. Their high tannin content can irritate sensitive stomachs, and when consumed late in the day, they demand too much from a body that's trying to wind down. George cut back. He began toasting his walnuts slightly, reduced them to a tablespoon per day, and moved them to mid-morning instead of breakfast or dinner. He also swapped in ground flaxseed, easier to digest, still good for the brain. "After a week, I had more energy. I could think clearly again," he said. For George, it wasn't about removing a food he liked. It was about learning how his body, after 70, needed different care. And that's what Elderly Reflections is all about. Not telling you what to eat, but helping you listen to what your body's been trying to tell you for years. And if digestion is a slow whisper, blood sugar is a sudden jolt, an invisible swing that can make or break your mood, your energy, and your long-term health. Especially after 60, when insulin response becomes more fragile, and even natural foods can trigger spikes. That's what makes the next nut on our list especially tricky, because it feels so safe, so mild, so comforting. But comfort isn't always harmless. Just ask Elaine Winters. Elaine, now 69, spent most of her life on stage. A retired opera singer from Vienna, she had elegance in everything she did, from the way she brewed her afternoon tea to the soft ritual of ending her evenings with a few dried figs and a generous spoon of hazelnut spread. "It was my little joy," she said. "Something sweet, something smooth, something mine." The hazelnuts, she thought, were a healthy alternative to desserts. Rich in vitamin E, heart-friendly fats, and antioxidants, they felt luxurious but smart. But as the months passed, Elaine noticed something odd. Her clothes felt tighter despite no major changes in diet. She began feeling groggy in the mornings and noticed her blood sugar readings were inching up. Fasting glucose that used to be in the 90s was now above 110. Her doctor warned her about prediabetes and asked about sweets. "I told him I don't eat sugar," she said. "And I meant it. Until my niece, a nutritionist visiting from Copenhagen, looked at the jar of natural hazelnut spread I loved so much." The label told the story. 8 grams of sugar per tablespoon, added oils, and nearly 100 calories in each tiny scoop. What was worse, even plain hazelnuts, which Elaine had also begun snacking on liberally, were contributing to the problem. "I learned that hazelnuts, though healthy in moderation, can raise insulin levels if you overdo them, especially with sweeteners," she said. For seniors managing blood sugar, this isn't a minor issue. High insulin levels don't just affect glucose, they affect inflammation, weight gain, sleep cycles, and even memory. Elaine made changes. She shifted her evening snack to a slice of avocado and a cup of golden milk, made with turmeric and oat milk. She limited hazelnuts to once a week in the morning. Her blood sugar stabilized. Her energy returned. "The cravings went away too," she said. "I didn't realize I was feeding a sugar loop. Now, I feel more even, more me." That's the heart of elderly motivation, reclaiming your rhythm not by denying joy, but by realigning joy with health. So what can we learn from Elaine? From George? From the quiet messages our bodies send after 60 that we sometimes ignore in favor of routine? that health is no longer about restriction, it's about attention. These stories, shared with us here at Elderly Reflections, reveal a deeper kind of inspiration. The kind that doesn't come from a perfect diet or the latest trend, but from finally listening, finally trusting what age has taught us. Walnuts may support your brain, but not if they cloud your digestion. Hazelnuts may protect your heart, but not if they quietly trigger a sugar storm. The life lessons from the elderly are never shouted. They're whispered, through stiffness in the joints, fog in the mind, or a restless night when all you wanted was peace. There's one nut that almost never makes it onto any warning list. It's praised for weight control, for fiber, for that satisfying crunch in salads and energy bars. For many older adults, it feels safe, something you can eat a little of each day without thinking twice. But beneath that crunchy confidence lies a subtle danger that reveals itself slowly, like sand wearing down stone. And for seniors already dealing with joint discomfort or trouble sleeping, this nut may be the final piece of the puzzle they never thought to question. We're talking about peanuts. Yes, the most common nut of all, even though technically it's a legume. Peanuts are found everywhere, in peanut butter, protein bars, roasted snack packs, and countless healthy, senior-friendly recipes. They're affordable, high in protein, and rich in niacin, which supports brain health. But here's what we rarely discuss. Peanuts are among the most inflammatory legumes, especially when consumed in excess or in heavily processed forms. They're also one of the top sources of aflatoxins, toxic compounds produced by mold that can grow on stored peanuts, particularly in warm or humid conditions, which affect large quantities of peanuts shipped worldwide. While younger bodies often tolerate low levels of aflatoxins, the immune system after 60 is no longer as vigilant. The liver, which processes these compounds, may already be burdened by age, medications, or underlying health issues. Combine that with the fact that most peanut butters, especially shelf-stable brands, contain added sugars, hydrogenated oils, and preservatives, and you've got a recipe for chronic, low-level inflammation that may show up as poor sleep, joint stiffness, or even frequent headaches. Then there's the issue of histamine sensitivity. For some seniors, peanuts can trigger allergic-like symptoms without a full-blown allergy, leading to postnasal drip, nighttime congestion, restless sleep, or brain fog upon waking. That was the case for Michael Dunham, a 72-year-old Vietnam veteran and grandfather of 5 in Texas. Michael had been eating peanut butter toast every morning since his Army days. "It was my thing," he said. "Crunchy peanut butter, 1 banana, and coffee. Every day, no question." But over time, he noticed swelling in his hands and ankles by midday. He also developed a strange pattern of congestion at night, often waking up gasping for air or needing to clear his throat. He was tested for sleep apnea. Nothing. Tried antihistamines. Nothing. It wasn't until a friend from his veterans group shared a documentary about mold in foods that he started to wonder. "I switched to almond butter for 2 weeks," he said. "Everything changed. The swelling, the stuffy nose, it was like flipping a switch." Michael's story isn't rare. At Elderly Reflections, we've seen how something so familiar, so rooted in memory and routine, can quietly erode quality of life. It's not about demonizing peanuts, but about seeing them clearly. If you're still enjoying them and have no symptoms, that's great. But if you're dealing with mystery inflammation, poor sleep, or stubborn fluid retention, try going 2 weeks without them. Replace them with a cleaner, less processed nut butter, like raw almond, macadamia, or even sunflower seed butter for those with nut allergies. And always store your nuts in the fridge in airtight containers to reduce mold exposure. Senior health isn't about giving things up. It's about giving yourself a chance to feel better with less friction, less guessing, and more trust in your body's signals. So, what can we learn from these 5 stories? Whether it's the stimulating effect of pistachios, the joint-triggering nature of cashews, the digestive burden of walnuts, the insulin spike from hazelnuts, or the inflammation from peanuts, each nut tells a different story when it enters a body over 60. The solution is not fear. It's not restriction. It's observation. It's awareness. And most of all, it's personal. What works for your friend may not work for you. What made you feel great at 40 may drag you down at 70. That's not failure, that's evolution. That's the elderly wisdom we speak of, not fearing change, but flowing with it. So how do you move forward? First, rotate your nuts. Don't eat the same kind every single day. This gives your body a break and reduces sensitivity. Second, time them well. Focus on morning and midday when your digestion and insulin response are stronger. Avoid nuts within 2 to 3 hours of bedtime unless you've tested and they truly help you sleep. Third, watch for combinations. Nuts paired with sugar, chocolate, or dried fruit can be a blood sugar roller coaster. Opt for whole, raw, or lightly toasted nuts with no additives. And finally, journal how you feel. Write down what you ate, when you ate it, and how your body responded that night or the next morning. Over time, you'll see patterns emerge, and those patterns will become your most trusted health guide. What matters most is that you keep asking questions, keep listening, and keep honoring the changing rhythms of your body. The journey of aging isn't a decline, it's a refinement. You're not broken, you're wiser, you're more in tune. You've earned the right to live with less discomfort and more clarity. And it starts with something as small and as powerful as a handful of nuts. We often believe that the path to better health lies in adding more supplements, more rules, more effort. But sometimes it's in the small subtractions that we find the most peace. A little less of the wrong nut, a little more listening, a little pause before the next bite. The truth is, your body at 65, 70, or 80 is not asking for perfection. It's asking to be heard. If this video gave you something to think about, or helped you understand your body a little better, I invite you to join our community here at Elderly Reflections. This is where we honor life lessons from the elderly, share senior health wisdom, and remind each other that aging is not a retreat, but a rediscovery. I'd love to know, what country or city are you watching from? Your story matters, just like George's, Elaine's, Michael's. If this helps, please leave a comment below, share this with someone you care about, and don't forget to like and subscribe so you never miss our next reflection on living well, aging with grace, and staying inspired, one quiet truth at a time.